Okay, well, I've been a Christian about 6.5 years, 7 years in October, in fact, and it was a rather dramatic conversion. I was an alcoholic, a drug addict, a compulsive gambler. I had a tag on my ankle, electronic tag. I've been in prison. I've been homeless for years, and I had a kind of a road to Damascus experience, really, if you like. A friend of mine came and told me about Jesus, and I'd been, desperate for some help for quite some time, and I'd kind of come to the end of my own rope. And at that point, there was room for me to perhaps take some help from someone else. But when he told me about Jesus and all that kind of thing, I thought, listen, I'm glad you've got a crutch or something, mate, but I'm not interested in that. Can you lend me a fiver? Because I was obviously desperate. And he said to me, look, Jesus is real. He can change your life and all that. I said, listen, I've got drug dealers after me. I've got real problems, not some airy-fairy nonsense in the sky. Because that's what I thought it was. I thought Christians were irrelevant, didn't have a voice, dressed weird, and just were, kind of like poor members of society, so to speak, or judgmental. That was my preconceived idea. And he kept on being persistent and asking me to go to this church service with him, so I thought at the end of the day, look, I'll go along. What's going to happen? It's going to be full of old biddies. I'll tap them up for a fiver, have a cup of tea and some biscuits, Jack's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt and all that, and I'll be gone. And God had another idea. When I got there, they opened the doors to these church buildings, and it was like getting off a plane for the first time. When they open the doors and the heat hits you, it's a change in atmosphere. And it was like that for me in this church building, except that it was coming from these people and I couldn't understand it. And I wanted to be part of it, but I was also afraid. And I went away that day challenged, and it was some weeks later that I went back to that same church building, and the pastor came out and talked about God could liberate you from all of your heartache and pains and this, that and the other, and give you a new way of living. And I decided, you know what, if God's like Ron Seal, which is what it says on the tin, I better have a crack at it. And I did. I gave God my life that day, and I've never looked back. Everything changed. Yeah, my story, a story like that can't be contained by one person, and I had to break out, tell people. So I wrote a book, Johnny Be Good. You can get it from all good bookshops. I gave Tim a copy, of course. And it led me to BBC Radio Derby. They asked me if I'd like to go for an interview about my book on the Sunday breakfast programme. And when I came out of the show, they went, that was really, really good. It was gripping. Could you come back next week and be a kind of interviewee on the mid-morning show with Alina Naylor? So I thought, okay, fine, great. I mean, I was up for that kind of thing. And little did I know, God had another plan. It was opening a door for me there. And after the interview, they came out, I came out, should I say, from the interview, and the bosses of the radio station were there, and they said, we'd like a chat with you. Would you like to host the Sunday breakfast show? We like your style. And I hadn't done radio. I said, wow, this is a fantastic opportunity. So I took that opportunity, and that was, about 2.5 years ago. And then I became the Sunday breakfast presenter and really thoroughly enjoyed being there. Well, it's kind of tricky because, you have to respect the fact that the BBC are a neutral company. They are reporting for the good of the public. And so they see their role as a very serious one. And so that may mean, showing all sorts of different faiths rather than just Christianity. There could be Hinduism or Muslim or Sikhism. And so as a Sunday breakfast presenter, you have to, be open to all of those different faiths and backgrounds to come on the show. And I can't openly proselytise, tell people about my own experience necessarily on that show. But I could get people in, or we could have Christian people in there, to bring their faith to the table, if you like. But one thing that was good about it was, even though I couldn't talk openly about my own faith, what it did was it got people talking about faith in general, and that's a good thing. Favourite story? Well, there's a couple really. I suppose there was one time when we had live hedgehogs in on the show, and that was a prickly situation, pardon the pun, but a bit of fun. It was good. And there's other time where I stayed out all night with the street pastors in Derby, and went out with my radio mic and kind of interviewed people and homeless people, drug addicts, just people generally out on the town, and that made for a very gripping listening, and that actually went towards us winning an award at BBC Radio Derby, so that was quite memorable. Okay, well, I started Sunday Night Live about 2 years ago, in May 2009, coming up to 2 years, and that is an evening of live entertainment. Started at Costa Coffee, but it's now in Starbucks and Cafe Nero as well, and it's broken out all over the UK. We've got about 30 venues and new ones opening all the time, 3 or 4 a month. And it's live entertainment with a twist of faith, so with really good quality artists that come on and perform their songs. Songs that they've written themselves. We talk about what's inspired them to write that music, and just generally a really good night for people to come to. It's free of charge. Now, of course, doing this whilst I was at the radio meant that I was working, you know, stupid hours or every week. So I had to kind of give way to the radio and say, okay, I've got to say farewell to the BBC radio so I can carry on working full-time Sunday Night Live, which is a full-time job. Although I still am in with the BBC. I recently had a TV programme out on BBC One on Inside Out, and we're going to be discussing where that's going to go throughout this year in 2011. But you know, my main goal at the moment is just to keep on opening new venues, seeing churches get out into the cities and towns around the country through Sunday Night Live, and just inspire people to live differently.